Assalamualaikum guys. So this is your question 4 from 9706 paper 22. This is February March paper and this is your paper from 2025. So this paper just recently happened. This is question 4, which is covering marginal costing and absorption costing. So this is an important question, and first we'll just read through the question and then we will look at the requirements and all the changes that we have to do. So starting off, they have asked you to prepare the apportionment of overheads and reapportionment of service departments. So as we know that we need to reapportion the service departments. So just reading on with the question. So D Limited is a manufacturing company which uses absorption costing. The factory has two production departments, cutting and finishing. These are also mentioned over here. And it also has two service departments, stores and canteens. So these service departments are to be apportioned. Some budgeted overheads have been allocated to the department as follows. They have given you the overheads allocated. The total is given over here in the first column, and then we have the cutting, finishing, stores and canteen values. Moving on, the following budgeted overheads have yet to be allocated or apportioned. Okay, so these have not been recorded. So we have supervisor salary. This is for cutting department. So this amount can directly go into the cutting department, and then there is supervisor salary for finishing department. So again, this can also directly go under your finishing department. Depreciation of machinery is given to us as 87,000. Now this is a complete total amount for the whole of the factory and the rent also. So the apportionment of these two should be on the basis of one of the following. Now as we know that machinery is related to the cost of machinery, so the depreciation of machinery, it is feasible that we will be deducting this amount, or we will be apportioning this amount on the basis of the cost of machinery. So we have been given the different cost of the machinery. So suppose the cutting department holds machinery that is of value 220,000, 152,000 for finishing department, 37,000 for store and 26,000 for canteen. So we will be doing this apportionment according to those values. So let's just start off with calculating the value for our depreciation of machinery. Now as we know that we have the individual amounts over here, what we do is we simply add these up and we get a total. So when we add all these four, we will be getting a total of 435,000, right? So all of these will add up to 435,000. Now how will we use this? We will basically make a proportion. So we know that the amount of the total value is 87,000. So in order to get the value for cutting department, we simply take that value 87,000 and we will multiply that by 220,000 divided by 435. So that will give us a value of the ratio. So we are taking the 220 that is belonging to the cutting department and we are taking the 435 that was the total. So this value will be around 44,000. So okay, so 44,000 is the value that we will be using for this. Likewise, we can calculate for the finishing department. So finishing department, the amount is 152,000, the cost of machinery. So this 152,000, again this time we will be using 152. So 152 divided by 435, and we will get the value that should go in your finishing department. So this will be around 30,400. So 30,400 is for this one. Likewise we'll do for stores and canteens. So once we have these values, basically these values will be going over here. So I can, if I just calculate for stores and canteen, so for stores we will be getting the amount of 7,400, and if I calculate this for canteen, the amount we will be getting will be 6,200. So this will be the depreciation amount that will be going over here. Okay, so if I can just solve this side by side, the very first thing that we need to mention over here, this will be our salaries. So they had given us the salaries for supervisor, so supervisor salary will go over here. Now keep this in mind that they have given you the total column first, so please do not write that value over here. You need to read your question carefully. So we have to start off with the cutting and finishing. So the salary for cutting department was 28,200 and for finishing department it was 26,300. So we will simply put these values over here. So recording 28,200 will go in the cutting department, and for the finishing department this was 20, let me just check it again, this was 26,300. So we write 26,300 over here. So these are the salaries. Now there is no supervisor salary for your stores or canteen, so obviously we will keep these blank. Now after salary, the next thing that we will be recording is the depreciation. So like I just told you, we have calculated the depreciation values. Now this depreciation, the total amount of the depreciation is what was given to us, and after using those ratios we calculated the individual amounts. So the total amount of 87,000, and then using these individual values. Okay, so we calculated these values as, so the depreciation that will go in your cutting department, that will be 44,000. So we just write that over here, 44,000, and then the value for finishing department was 30,400, and for other two we calculated this as 7,400, and for canteen this was 5,200, right? So this is 5,200. Now remember when we calculated these, so once again I am just repeating the process. What we do is we first choose the basis that we are choosing. So because we have to apportion the depreciation of machinery, so we will be using the cost of machinery. This is the most relevant, and we will simply add all these values up. So cutting 220 plus 152 plus 37 plus 26, this all adds up to 435,000, and then we simply use it in a ratio form and we multiply it by the original value to get the value that we need. So I think so I wrote this wrong. This is basically 87,000 because that was the total amount. So 87,000 multiplied by 152 over 435 for finishing, 87,000 multiplied by 220 over 435 for the cutting department, and likewise we had calculated for the other two, for stores and for the canteens. So these are the values that we're getting for the depreciation. And once we are done with the depreciation, the next thing we need to do is for the rent. So again, to calculate for the values for the rent, what we will do is that we will add up. Now the rent should be apportioned on the basis of floor area, right? So that is the most relevant form over here. So the floor area is basically the amount of floor area that each department is covering, so the rent should be divided accordingly. So we have been given the floor area for all the four departments. So for 1500 for cutting, 890, and then 280 for stores, and then for canteens we have 330. So again, we will simply add 1500 plus 890 plus 280 plus 330. So this gives us a total of 3000, right? So the total floor area is 3000 meter per square. And now we will use the same method that we did earlier on. So we take 48,000 and we will be multiplying it by the ratio of that particular department only. So this was 1500, so 1500 divided by 3000, and we will get a value. So 1500 divided by 3000 is obviously 1 over 2, and 1 over 2 means that we will be having 24,000 as the value for our rent for cutting department. Likewise, we will do this for the others. So for finishing department, we again take that 48,000, but this time we will be multiplying it by 890 over 3000, and this will give us a value of 14,240. Similarly, we will calculate for stores and canteen. So for stores, we will multiply 48,000 by 280 over 3000. That will give us the value, and for canteen we will do the same. So now these values will be going over here in the rent section. So the rent for cutting, we calculated it as 24,000, so we will simply write this as 24,000. The other one was 14240, so 14240 goes over here, and this will be 4480, and this will be 5280. Alright, now one thing that we can do is that we can add these totals over here and write those down as well. So the total amount for the depreciation of machinery was 87,000, so we know that this will add up to 87,000. So all these values will add up to 37,000. So this 44, 30,400, 7,400, this we should add up to 87,000. And similarly for rent, the total amount was 48,000, so this will be 48,000. 8,000. Right, now once we are done with this, we can simply do a total because there are no other values to put down. Now when we add this up, we'll first add 49920 plus 5200 plus 5280, and that will give us the value. So when we add this up, this will be 6040. So okay, so we write this in this subtotal. So the subtotal 60400. For stores department, this will be 57260. So for finishing, adding up 145 990 plus 263 plus 304 plus 14240, that will give us a total value of 22834. No, that will give us a value of 216930. So 216930. And for the last one, this will be 279470. So 279470. So once we have calculated these subtotals, the next step is to reapportion the canteen department. So the total value for canteen department is this 60,400. Now we will just be reapportioning this. So what we're doing is basically we are finishing this 60,400 and we are reapportioning this amount in all the other departments. So the canteen department should be reapportioned on the number of employees because it's basically these employees that are using the canteen. So when we add 45 to 31, we get 76, and 76 plus 6 gives us 82. And again we will do the same thing over here. So in order to take the value, we need to use that total value and we will divide it according to the ratio that we just made. So like we know that the total number of employees are now 82. So 6 plus 31 plus 45, the total amount that we were getting for canteen 60,400. So using that 60,400, we can, what we are doing is that we will multiply this by 45 over 82. So we will get the value for the cutting department, and then again the same thing we will do is that we'll multiply the 60,400 by 31 over 82, and we will get the value for the finishing department, and lastly that will be 6 over 82. So once we do these values, so 60,400 multiplied by 45 over 82 is giving us 33146, and this will be giving us 22,834. So these are the values that we will be using over here. So basically this 60,400 will be reapportioned to the other department. So the first value for our cutting department was 33,146. the second value was 22,834, and the last one was 4420. So if you add these up, so 33,146, 22,834 and 4420, you will be getting 60,400. Now again we will be doing new subtotals, so the subtotals will change, and then we will repeat the same process to reapportion the stores amount. So just totaling them up, but keep in mind that now this time you will simply be using the values from here, so it will only be 57260 plus 4420, so that gives you 61,680. there is nothing over here because we finished that off, and this will be 23 9 7 6 4, and this one will add up to 312616. 312616. So now this time we need to reapportion the value for canteen. So reapportion the value for stores department. So the stores department total value is 61680. This was 61680, and I missed the 0 over here. Okay, so this was 61680. Now again we go back and we use the issue from stores for this one, right? Because basically this is related to stores. And another thing that you can see is that when we are given these apportionments, so obviously this is gonna be divided into 3 parts, whereas this is only being divided into 2 parts. So that's a good way to analyze that which one should be selected first and which one should be selected afterwards. So 84 plus 43 gives us 127. So now again we will be using the same technique that we did before. This time we will take the value of the total stores that we calculated and we will multiply it according to the ratio. So the total amount for stores is 61680. So using that 61680, we can simply, so 61680 multiplied by 84 over 127, right? So that will give us the value for the first one. For the cutting department, this should be 40796. Now because there are only 2 values, what you can do is you can simply deduct this from 61680 to get the other value. So we'll just put down these values over here. So 40796 and 40796 minus 61680, that will give us the value of 20884. So that goes over here. Now lastly we'll simply add these values. So again this time we will be adding the values from the new subtotal that we calculated. So this becomes 0, this becomes 0. So 239764 plus 20884, that gives us 260648, and then 312616 616 plus 40796 will give us 353,412, right? So what we can do is we can also write the total overheads over here. We simply add these two up, and this will give us a total of 61405. Okay guys, so these are your total overheads. Now obviously we'll be using these total overheads to calculate the overhead absorption rate. This is one quick picture for you guys to check the values, and I'm sure hopefully all these values are correct. So moving on to the next part, the budgeted hours for each production department were as follows. They have given you labor hours and machine hours for cutting and finishing department. Now to calculate two decimal place and overhead absorption rate for each production department. Now keep one thing in mind, that whenever we are choosing the absorption rate basis, we will be taking the department that has more capital intensive or that is more labor intensive. So we can quickly judge that by looking at these values. So when we look at the value for cutting department, we can clearly see that cutting department is using more of the machine hours, right? So for calculating the overhead absorption rate for cutting department, we will be using machine hours. But on the other hand, the finishing department is more labor intensive, so the finishing department will be using is using more labor hours. So for finishing department, we will be calculating overhead absorption rate on the basis of labor hours. So this is how this is always done. Now we'll simply take our total values that we have calculated over here for finishing and the cutting department. So this cutting department is 353412. So 353412. So taking this 353412, we divide this by the total number of machine hours, because this is for the cutting department, we are using machine hours. So this will give us the value. This is 42.99, right? So we can approximate it to 43, but this is two decimal places, so we'll stick to 42.99. And then for the finishing department, the total overheads for finishing department were 260648. So this is 260648, and we divide this by the total number of labor hours, because that is what we're choosing for this one. So dividing it by the total number of labor hours, so that is 7144. So this will be giving us a value of 36.48. So 36.48 per labor hour. You need to always write the complete thing. So this is per labor hour, and that one was per machine hour, right? So this was $40 42.9, this was $42.9 or 43, and this was per machine hour, because that was calculated on the machine hours. And this is $36.48, and this is for per labor hour. Alright guys, so moving on to the next part, Now this is a part that kind of took a lot of students by surprise, because this was an FCO inventory valuation, and this was something that the students weren't really prepared for. So this part C is asking to complete the following table to show the value of the closing inventory. So under FCO method, so the value of closing inventory of component X using FCO. Now FCO is your average costing method, and for FCO method what we do is that we simply calculate an average cost of all the material that we have. So reading on with the question, the store department issues component X to the finishing department. The weighted average cost method of inventory is used. The following details about the component are available. The store department held 6 components of X in inventory which had cost $8 each. So what this means is that we have an opening inventory of 8 units. We have an opening inventory of 6 units which are at the cost of 8. So if we simply multiply that, so 6 multiplied by $8, we will be getting a value of 48, right? Now after that date they have purchased on 6 Jan 12 units at $8 each. Now again this is 12 more are purchased at $8. So 12 into 8 gives us a value of 96. Now for average costing, what we do is that we will simply add these two amounts. So 48 plus 96 will give us a value of 144, and we will add our units also. So this is 6 plus 12, this is 18, and we can now divide 144 by 18. So 144 divided by 18, and we get the average cost. Now over here they both were purchased at the same value, right, which was of 8. That's why we are getting 8. If these two values were different, which will happen in the case that is after 16 Jan and 27 Jan, so obviously this cost will change. So what we are calculating over here, this is basically your average cost. So now moving on, what we see is that they have issued 7 units. So out of these total 18, 7 units are gone, and now when these 7 units are gone, we're only left with 11 units, right? So 18 minus 7, we have 11 units, and these 11 units are at the value of 8, right? So 11 into 8, that gives us 88. Now on further 16 Jan, we are purchasing 8 units, and these are purchased at the price of $9, right? So 8 into 9 gives us 72. So this time we will add this up. So 88 plus 72 gives us 160, and now we know the total number of units, 11 plus 8, these are 19. So to calculate this average cost, we are simply dividing 160 by 19. Okay? So we divide 160 by 19. So when we do that, 160 divided by 19, we get a value of 8.42. So that means that the average cost of these 19 units is 8.42, and now we will be using this average cost for the remainder of the units. So after this date, what has happened is that they have used up 13 more units. So out of 19, when 13 units have been used up, we will be left with 19 minus 13. So we will only be left with 6 units, right? Now these 6 units should be recorded at the value of 8.42 that we have calculated. So 6 multiplied by 8.42 gives us a value of 50.52, right? Now on 27 Jan they are purchasing 10 additional units, so these 10 more are purchased at the value of 10, and obviously this will be totaling as 100. So the total cost becomes 150.52. Now this 150.52 is for the total 16 units that we have, and again let's just calculate the average cost. So 150.52 divided by 16 will give us the value of 9.4. So 150.52 divided by 16, we have the value of 9.4. So the question was asking us to calculate the value of closing inventory, right? So for the closing inventory, now we can see that on the last date we are only left with 16 units, and the total value for that will be $150.52. So this is the amount of your closing inventory. And if we had to write down the per unit average cost, so the per unit average cost will be 9.4. So now we can simply write these values in this chart that they have given to us. They are only asking you for the inventory valuation values. So on 6 Jan, that was this point, on 6 Jan the total value of inventory, now I'll just use different colors so it is easier. So at 12 Jan the value of inventory was 144, right? Because that was the point where we purchased these 12 units and we had the opening inventory of 6 units, so 6 plus 12, 18. So on 6 Jan we have a total of 18 units costing at $8, the total amount 144. So over here we will simply write 144. Now this working is very important. They have given you a space for working. I just did all over here so that it's easier for you to understand by looking at the question. Now on 9th Jan they have used up 7 units. So after using up those 7 units we were left with 11 units, right? So it's basically these 11 units that are left in our inventory. So this should be the value that should go on the date of 9th Jan, right? So this will be 88 because we haven't purchased any additional till yet. So this is what we're left with. So 11 into 8, that is 88. Now this one for 16 Jan, because we have purchased these 8 additional units, so after that our total inventory was 19 units valued at 8.42 totaling to 160, right? So this was 19 into 8.42, 160. So this is the 160 that is going over here. So after that on 21st Jan they are using up 13 units and then they are left because we had a total of 19. So when we use 13 units we are left with 6 units and these 6 are recorded at 8.42. So that gives us a value of 50.52. So in this one I'll simply write 50.52. And for the last one, on 27 Jan, they purchased 10 additional units at the rate of 10, and the total value after adding that 100 into the previous value of 50.52, we had 150.52, which was also our closing balance. So I'll just write 150.52 over here. Now keep one thing in mind, that I am just writing the values of your inventory, because that's what this column is asking for. So they are asking you for the inventory valuation, so the inventory is valued accordingly. So that's why according to that date, how many units were actually in store with us, we are writing the value of that amount. And obviously you will be supporting this with your working. This will be completely impossible to calculate without the working, so your workings should always be there to support how you have calculated these values. So this is pretty much it for this part of FCO inventory calculation. Once again, you can take a look at this, pause this, and do all the workings. Now moving on to the next part. So additional information is saying that D Limited uses marginal costing at another factory where two products B and C are made. The following forecast information is available. So this is for B and this is for C. They have given you the selling price and they have given you the direct material. So this direct material is 4 per kg, and for B they are using 7 kg per manufacturing per unit of B, and for C they are using 9 kg to manufacture 1 unit of B. Similarly, the direct labor hours are also given. Now the rate for direct labor hour is $9 per hour. B is taking 14 hours to manufacture and 11 hours for manufacturing C. They have already given you the contribution per unit. So this contribution per unit has already been calculated. That means that the selling price minus your variable cost gives you the contribution. You can also try to just calculate this to check whether this is correct. So we can simply take 7 into 4. So 7 into 4 gives us 28, and 14 into 9 gives us 126. So if we deduct 28 and 126 from 173, so 173 minus 28 minus 126, yes, we are getting 19. And then they have given you the production and sales for both units. So this is 60 units and for this it is 50 units. Further, they have given you fixed costs. So fixed costs are 1100 per month. Now the information is saying the supplier of direct material has notified the directors that delivery problems will mean that in August only 70% of the forecast requirement for direct materials will be available. So clearly this is a question for limiting factor, and the limiting factor over here is the amount of direct material that is available to you. So the supplier has indicated that only 70% of the total material required will be available. So now the directors are considering two options. Option A is to organize production in order to maximize the profit with available material, and option B is to purchase additional material from a new supplier to make up the shortfall. The supplier charges $5 per kg. Okay, so for the limiting factor question, we are given two options. So in option A, they have asked you to calculate the maximum profit that can be there using the existing limited material only. Now whenever we are calculating a limited material or any limiting factor, we try to calculate the contribution per limiting factor first, and the contribution per limiting factor will help us rank that which product should be given priority to be produced completely and which one should be left out. So we have the contribution per unit for these two products already given to us. So I just first write the contribution for both these products. Now we need to calculate the contribution per limiting factor. So what we do is that we take this contribution and we divide it by the amount of unit that is limited that each product is using. So in this case the limiting factor is the material. So the amount of material that each of these two units are using, that is the amount that we will be using to calculate our contribution per limiting factor. So B is using 7 kgs. So what we'll do is that we'll simply divide this 19 by 7. So 19 divided by 7, and for C we are using 9 kgs. So the contribution of C 21 will be divided by 9. So these will give us the two values. So 19 divided by 7 gives us a value of 2.71, and when we divide 21 by 9 we get a value of 2.33. So now this is our contribution per limiting factor, right? So this contribution that we just calculated, this is the contribution per limiting factor. So material was our limiting factor over here. Now based on these two values we will be looking at the greater value. So the one that is greater, so over here we can see that 2.71 is greater than 2.33. That means that B will have the first priority of being produced. So we are giving this the first priority, and obviously what will be left will go in production of C. So the way of deciding this is just on the basis of contribution per limiting factor. We calculate the contribution per limiting factor by dividing the contribution, your normal contribution per unit, and divided by the total number of material that is limited. We divided by that and we get the value, and we compare those two values. So if these were 3 products we would have compared that and given the rank accordingly. So now one thing we know for sure is that B will be given priority. Now moving back to the question, let's just look at the total amount of material that was required to us. So when we are producing 60 units of B, so in order to produce 60 units of B, each unit is using 7 kgs of material. So we multiply 60 by 70. So we will know the total amount of material that is needed for the production of B. So this will be 60 multiplied by 7. This gives us 420 kg, and similarly 50 multiplied by 9 kg. So 50 multiplied by 9, this gives us the value of 450 kg. So the total material in normal circumstances to produce these many units, so 420 plus 450, the total amount will be 870 kg material is required. Now the supplier said that only 70% of the normal material can be provided. So if we just take out 70% of this 870, that gives us the value of 609. So multiplying 870 by 70%, so 70% of 870 is 609. That means that supplier is only able to provide 609 kg of the material. Now out of this 609 kg, because we have decided that we will be giving priority to B, so almost all of the production for B will happen normally. So these 420 kgs that are required to produce 60 units of B, they will be used, and that will happen normally. So but when we will be using 420 kgs, so from this 609 kg we will only be left with 189 kg of material. Now this 189 kg of material will be used to calculate the number of units that can be manufactured for C. So when we have 609 total material, so I used up 420 kgs for the production of B. Now I am only left with 189 kg of material. Now for 1 unit they are using 9 kgs, so I divide this 189, so dividing this 189 by 9 per kg, so that will give me the number of units that I can manufacture for C. So 189 divided by 9 gives me 21. So that means for C I'll only be able to produce 21 units, right? So what we have done over here is, first we calculated the total number of material that is required, and then because of the limiting factor only 70% is available to us, so the total amount of material that is available to us is only 609 kg. Now because of our calculation as per contribution per limiting factor, we chose to make all the units of B. So making all the 60 units of B, we will be using up 420 kgs of material. So we were given 609 kg of material by the supplier. Out of that we used up 420 kg of the material, so now we are left with 189 kgs of material. Now only this 189 kg of material can be used to produce C. So for each unit of C I require 9 kgs, so I am simply dividing this 189 by 9, and that gives me the total number of units that I can manufacture for C. So out of these 50 units, because of this situation where the supplier is not supplying me the complete needed raw material, I'll only be able to manufacture 21 units of C. So now the question was asking us to calculate the profit that can be made under option A. So this is your option A, where you're sticking to your original supplier, and with these limited material, what can be the total amount of profit that you're making. So now we know that we have the total sales for B will be your 60 units. So the contribution is already given to us, so that means this whole contribution can be used. So I have worked this out for you. What we'll do is we'll take the contribution, we'll have a total. So for B we are making the 50 units or the 60 units complete, and the contribution per unit was 19, so we get the for the value for B, the total contribution as 1140. And for C we are only manufacturing 21 units as we just figured out, and these 21 units have a contribution of 21 as given in the question. So this multiplied by 21 gives us a value of 441. We add them up, we get a total contribution of 1581, and then we simply deduct our fixed costs from that total contribution to get a profit of 481. So the profit in option A, where you're sticking to your limited supplies and you're maximizing your profit, so the maximum profit that you can make is only by manufacturing all units of B, and only 21 units of C, and you will have a profit of 481. Now moving on to option B. So now option B is, as you can see, this is only for 3 marks. This shouldn't require that much of working. Now option B was to purchase additional material from a new overseas supplier to make up the shortfall of the additional the limiting factor, and we just calculated that we are only able to manufacture 21 units. So if we have, we need to see how much remaining units we need to make. So the total demand was for 50 units. So out of 50, if we are manufacturing 21 units with our existing supplies, so we only need additional 29 units that we need to make. Now for those 29 units, if we are getting material from this new supplier, he is charging us 5 per kg. Now currently our material was already 4 per kg, so the excess is of only $1, right? So this additional material is only needed for these 29 units that we have to make. So what we can do is that we can simply take these individual values and calculate the new contribution, or we can make changes to the existing contribution according to those 29 units only. So guys, this option B will make us change the contribution for these extra 29 units that we are not producing. So what we can do is that we will try to see that what can be the contribution, because we already have the contribution for the 21 units that we have currently calculated. So this is for those 21 units, which is 441. But now with this option B, we can produce those additional 29 units. However, the direct material will not be 4 anymore, it will be at 5 per kg. So what we can do is that we can simply take out a new contribution for C using this information. Now this value is only changing by 1. We can take that additional effect, or we can just simply calculate the new contribution for that can be used for these additional 29 units. So remember, this was being used as 9 per kg. So instead of multiplying that 9 by 4, now we multiply that 9 by 5 per kg. So if we multiply 9 by 5 per kg, we get a value of 45, and so this is the value of direct material. And then this labor hour remains the same, so this was 11 hours at 9 per hour, so this was 99. The selling price remains the same, so 156 minus 45 and minus 99, so we will get the new contribution. So 156 minus 45 minus 99 gives us the value of 12. So for these 29 units, we can use the contribution as 12. So let's just quickly work this out. So we have two contributions over here for C, right? So one is for, according to 20, for those 21 units that we were originally making, and that was the normal contribution that was given to us because nothing had changed for that. That is 441. That is exactly the same that we used in our part A calculation. But for option B, we are able to produce these additional 29 units, and the contribution for that we calculated as 12. So this 12 that I am taking over here, this is the contribution that we just calculated by making that change in the direct material value. So 29 multiplied by 12 gives us the value of 348. Now we can simply add our so this is the contribution for C, right? So the B is already there, so we can simply add in the contribution of B. So the contribution of B will stay the same, that is 1140. So adding 1140 to this, we get the total, and we can simply deduct our fixed cost from this. So I am just writing this as FC. So the fixed cost was 1100. So that can directly give us the value of profit. So adding this up, 441 plus 348 gives us 789, and then we add 1140 to that, makes it 1929, and then we deduct the fixed cost, that is 1100, and we are left with a profit of 829, right? So this is the profit under option B. So this is the profit of 829 under option B, and under option A the profit was 481. So the next part is asking, advise the directors which option they should choose. So obviously they should go with option B, where they can buy the additional material from the new supplier and increase their sales, because obviously in option B they will be selling more units, so that means more revenue for them. This is a 7 marker theory part, so obviously you will be giving this in detail, that under option A they're only making a profit of 481, whereas under option B they're able to make a profit of 829. So this is quite more than the option A profit. And with the new option, with the option B, they can also be developing new relation with a new supplier which can help them in future. It can also help them because they will be fulfilling their demand, so that will have a good reputation in the market. So suppose if they had short or limited units, that might cause their reputation to go down because they were not able to meet the demand. So obviously all those points can go over here, but just once again let me explain this to you. So what we are doing over here is we are simply taking the effect of that additional $1 that was being increased in their direct material price. So this $1, because this is 9, so obviously 9, and then these were the total units of 29 additional that they were using. So that's why this is how I did this. And these are both the contribution for B and C. We add the contributions and we deduct the fixed cost to get a profit of 829.